Today on In the Know, we've spoken to a number of leaders in retail about issues that are top of mind for professionals in that industry. Here's what they had to say.
Well, it's an interesting area that we live in. You know, us as consumers, we have incredible power at our fingertips. We're able to buy anywhere, anytime, anything, and which is extraordinary. But the challenge that poses for supply chains, not just for retailers, but for manufacturers as well, for suppliers, is unprecedented. And it really equates to a couple of things. Really, the big thing is the amount of variability that it imposes on the supply chain, right? It's hard to predict. I'm not just stocking stores anymore. I could be shipping from store, customer can be picking up in store, I could be fulfilling from DC. The options continue to enumerate as different providers bring to market, varying solutions.
A summary of the biggest pain points in the retail industry that we see is simply this: omnichannel logistics. What does it mean? It means different things to different segments, to different markets, and to different retailers, but ultimately the same issues are there, and that is, no matter how big or how small you are as a retailer, no matter if you are a 100% e-commerce or 100% bricks and mortar or 100% domestic or 100% outside of the US, all of the rules still apply, and that is, all the rules are different from they were just 10 years ago and just 5 years ago, and even to some extent just 2 years ago. There are retailers out there, especially the US retailers, are beginning to look outside of the US for new markets. And if you're a retailer, you're studying up on what Tmall is and what Alibaba has to offer with regards to either e-commerce, fulfillment, marketplaces, and you're learning up on the Chinese consumer, which may not have even been on your radar 2 or 3 years ago. That's the biggest challenge, is constant and quickly becoming ever more rapid change.
What does omnichannel mean? Is omnichannel the definition that we use to define how we're going to deliver product and we have multiple options? I think if you just jump to the end, and really what we're doing is serving the customer. The customer defines the expectations. They define how they want the product delivered. We happen to use the word omnichannel as a physical delivery mechanism. It's really about servicing that customer's expectations however they want to change them today.
Now, to be successful in the retail business, one channel, as you mentioned, one channel is not enough. So I have to extend my platform right from brick and mortar to the e-commerce platform, and that also should be available on mobile as well as on the desktop. So we have to make sure that we have the common theme running across and common features and facilities running across all these channels, and that will be benefited if we go for custom software development, because you cannot have e-commerce platform from vendor A and a mobile platform from vendor B, and you keep on kind of fighting at the theme level. So custom software helps you have a common theme all across.
Almost every retailer that we talk to is going down this road of optimizing their entire supply chain for omnichannel. What does that mean as it relates to WMS and TMS? A perfect example is this. So let's say 10 years ago, a retailer's e-commerce orders totaled 2 to 3% of their total revenues, but now it's closer to 30 or 40%. That has a direct impact on how they've set up their DCs, whether or not they've outsourced their DCs, have they done a center of gravity study, do they have 3 DCs across the country that manage the fulfillment for their retail stores perfectly, but they haven't even taken into consideration dropship vendors, marketplaces, and now you have a rising percentage of direct-to-consumer e-commerce orders. That all starts at the DC. And not only does that start at the DC with the pick and the fulfill and the pack and ship, but especially with the shipping part, you could be talking about TMS integration. So is this going FedEx? Is this going parcel? Is this going integrator? Is this going LTL? All of that routing and all those definitions can be, and oftentimes in omnichannel need to be, tied to the WMS, especially as it relates to retail compliance. So you may be fine in your e-commerce DC at fulfilling orders for your e-commerce customers, but you still have retail compliance. Hundreds of retailers out there have a long list of dimensions, labels, requirements, and other regulations that need to be applied, rules that need to be applied for every single shipment, and you have to be on point for all of them.
I mean, ultimately what we're seeing is there's no one size fits all. It's going to be very specific to the type of goods that are being sold, the type of sub-industry, in particular retail. You've got, I think, emerging partnerships that are going to happen between manufacturers and retailers to do direct to consumer. You have some manufacturers in some areas looking to go direct to consumer for staple products, right? Interesting strategy, could be very disruptive. So I don't think we're at a point where there's just this established norm or everything is settled. I think we're in an era now where more and more trends are just going to emerge as people try to find ways to become disruptive.
If you look at what's happened here, now home delivery is considered to be a given. People don't expect to wait weeks. They don't want to see stay at home all day, right? And all of those things have changed the market. We think there's going to be a whole nother wave of capabilities that will be coming. So everybody's talking about same day, but if you really talk to retailers and their ability to do it today, it's not necessarily there. We'll see more of it. We'll see more of the value-added services. Believe it or not, you're going to see people charge more again. Free is, you're starting to see this with Amazon Prime, and a number of other retailers are saying, well, we really can't afford to do it that way. And if I said anything about the retail community, is that they view this as was a great entree, to get people's attention, but not sustainable in the business models that they had.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's important to note in retail as you think about supply chain design is to really think about it from the customer or the store back. You got to think about service levels, what kind of experience you want that customer to have. So everything should be built up to that point of delivery at the store. One of my old employers would say, nothing happens until she says yes. So you got to think about what service levels do I want to achieve, and then connect that to how your inventory, your merchandise is deployed throughout your network, from that store through the distribution system to the port to the factory.
Well, I think we've been seeing an evolution in a number of emerging kind of trends or operating policies come into play. It started with just the whole notion of e-commerce, right? A large retailer might have a very dedicated channel to fulfill those online orders. But that started to change, and certainly with the advent of some of the large online retailers, it really has changed the game. And more, a lot of the prominent retailers are now looking at their overall supply chain, stores included, as potential fulfillment points. And that gets now really tricky, because the decision on where to stock the inventory and where to fulfill from becomes much more complex. You go from really, what traditionally were very linear supply chains, raw materials to my manufacturing, to my DCs, to my retailer, to my store, to my consumer, to now really many-to-many supply chains. And so that level of complexity, when you kind of think about it, it all comes down to, where am I putting my inventory to be most effective, right? How am I getting it closest to my consumer to be very effective, and what is that associated assortment? And that's a big challenge.
I think we are about to embark on the largest transformation in decades in the supply chain, and it's going to affect all of us, every member of the supply chain. We're about to go into a situation now where the customer, enabled by mobile technology, is going to set the expectations. But they're going to set those expectations on every single transaction. So today, I buy something on the way home from the store with my mobile phone, I pick it up at the store. Tomorrow, I may buy that same item and have you ship it to a hotel I'm going to be at. And down the road, I may buy it and have you deliver it with a drone. The key difference for the supply chains of the future now is they have to define the customer as a market of one. Each customer defines and sets their own expectations every single day with every new transaction. The entire supply chain must respond to that one market of one customer, but they have to do it thousands of times a day. So it's a pretty exciting process, but it's going to require a change for every component of the supply chain, not just the retailer, not just the distribution center. The manufacturer, the transportation organizations, everyone is going to have to respond to that customer who will define that expectation with each transaction.
If I had a caution out to retailers, manufacturers, participants in this phenomenon, I think it's don't look for the easy fix. This is a challenge that we're all facing. It's not going away. It's going to get more complex. We're going to see more and more models emerge. And I think those that take a step back and holistically look at their supply chains and really look to solve kind of the problem from a more holistic point of view are the ones that are going to emerge. And so that's always my caution.
Well, there you have it. Information that you can use. Information that puts you in the know.